Hello, and welcome to this PlayoutONE tutorial video. My name is Dave Briley-Jones. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today to take a look at PlayoutONE Monitor. As the title suggests, what is PlayoutONE Monitor? By the end of this video, you will be an expert in all things PlayoutONE Monitor. Before we start though, I do have to just quickly remind you, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then please do so. Just go to youtube.com/PlayoutONE. That way you'll be notified when we do any more of these types of videos that you may find interesting. So here we go, PlayoutONE Monitor. What indeed is it? Well, as it suggests in the name, it monitors stuff. And it's really quite useful for other things as well. Here it is on the screen in front of us. As you can see, it is the M logo from the desktop. And when we open the app, you'll be presented with a similar looking screen to this. When you start it up, it may not be as bright, but once you start adding settings, it will look something like this. So what are we monitoring? Well, we're monitoring everything. Everything in your radio station setup. The aim of the game for Monitor is to alert you of a problem before it happens. Unfortunately, if the problem happens, then it will alert you as well, but we want to try and minimize anything that's about to go wrong. Now, what could that be? Well, we may have forgotten to import our music logs for tomorrow or our traffic logs. Monitor's going to email you and tell you, warn you that there's a problem. Hey, we may not have any commercials for tomorrow. It's that kind of thing. For whatever reason, somebody may have closed down one of our crucial applications for downloading shows, such as File Copy or Auto Importer. Monitor's going to warn you and tell you, hey, just so you know, Auto Importer is not running. So let's take a look into how this works. So in the grid here below, you'll see the stations that are in our setup. So we've got 3 classic hits, more classic hits, and classic split. You'll see the status of each station, when the program logs are scheduled up to, when the traffic logs are scheduled up to, and the current now playing song or item on the air. In the panel just below, or should I say the panel just above, you'll see some of the services which we're monitoring. So some couple of key services here. You'll notice that this one, PlayoutONE Web, and if we hover over it, we should get the tooltip. The PlayoutONE Web services, that's in a slightly different green. That's because we're monitoring that on a different machine. More on that a little bit later. These ones aren't in use. Applications 8 to 10. WebVT is up and running, and currently our backups are turned off. Naughty. That shouldn't be like that. You want to make sure your backups are turned on. We'll cover that in just a second. So let's take a look at the main settings. We're going to do that by clicking this main settings button here. And straight away, we're taken into the main settings of Monitor. Database, data backups. This is something I really want to talk about. In a world of ever-changing things, whether it be Microsoft, ransomware attacks, viruses, it is so crucial that you have a backup of all your audio and data. And a big part of Monitor's responsibility is to ensure your backups are working correctly. So we're setting our main directory here as our backup location, or as our source, and then our backup folder is an external drive called E. And if we were to turn this on, what it will do is every 4 hours, it will say, okay, that new audio file is there. I better copy that to the backup. I'll do a database backup as well. So it's constantly monitoring your backups and making sure they're in sync. If for whatever reason they're not in sync because somebody's unplugged the backup drive or Dropbox isn't working, it's going to alert you. It's also a nice fail-safe. If someone deletes something from PlayoutONE, yes, you have the recycle bin, which keeps it there for 14 days and doesn't really delete it. But after that, you think, I need something. I need to get that file back. You can do, because we only delete from the backup by default after 30 days. So it will remain on the backup. Let's have a look at what else we've got in here. So in the WebVT section, this is where the WebVT service is turned on. We also have our own WebVT static IP updater, which gives you a webvt.net address. So all of our jocks go to classichits.webvt.net. They don't have to remember the long numbers of the IP address. For whatever reason, if our ISP changes that IP address, the long numbers, then Monitor knows. It's monitoring it all the time and will change accordingly. So classichits.webvt.net always points to the right place. Really useful. Monitor is also responsible for your licensing. So by default, we're active. That's good. We've got an expiry date of the 11th of Jan. Plenty of time. With PlayoutONE, we do not limit you to, only running certain apps on certain machines. You can run PlayoutONE on as many machines as you want, as long as they're all connected to this database on your network. It's up to you. You will have a concurrent limit. So we have a concurrent limit of 5 here. We're using 1, but it's up to you where and when you use them. Ignition. Again, just like putting the key in the ignition of your car, Ignition allows Monitor to start up a range of different applications when the PC starts. So let's take the scenario. We have a power cut. We're not running a UPS. Boo. So we're off the air. However, power comes back on an hour later. Server comes back up. Monitor is the first thing to start. And then Monitor controls everything else. Monitor will start PlayoutONE, auto importer, file copy, live stream, data controller, anything else you set. And it will start them up so they're all ready to go. Really, really quite useful. Here's our application monitor. So you remember on the front screen, we were monitoring auto importer and data controller, file copy. Here's how we set that. And you can see here I mentioned that web services, that was running on a different machine. We have what we call Studio Monitor, which is a tiny little application that runs on the Studio machine. And that can be used to monitor different applications that maybe aren't running on this machine. So at the minute we're saying, please monitor PlayoutONE Web Services, which is running on our Studio machine. And you can see it's a remote application because it's Tixo here. Finally, we've got the email settings. So in here, this is where you would pump in all your email details so that Monitor can send you nice emails. We've got multi-station, so if your system is a multi-site, then you'll see all the status of your multi-stations here. And finally, in the options tab, some other bits and pieces. One of them really useful, hard drive monitor. Yeah, you can monitor if a hard drive is running out of space and be alerted to do so, as that can be pretty problematic if you run out of space. So those are the main settings. Let's take a look at the station settings. To do that, we're going to double click into classic hits here and have a look at what's going on. So here's the dashboard, and straight away you can see a lovely grid here. And this is showing us when our program logs are scheduled up until. So we're scheduled right the way up until the end of the 4th of Jan. If I hit traffic logs, oh, not so good. We're only scheduled up until the 29th of December. You can see, though, this number tells you how many traffic logs are actually scheduled, or sorry, how many spots are scheduled in each hour. So quite a nice little useful look to see what's going on the station. In the alerts tab here, we can choose when we get our daily alerts. So 12 p.m. is when we get our alerts. You can set a recipient here. If it's left blank, then the main settings email recipients that we just saw in the email settings will be used instead. Moving down the list, we can see we can turn on or off different log notifications. So we're being told here if the program logs are not scheduled, warn us, tell us. There's also other ones in here for traffic logs, warning us if there are no traffic logs scheduled. You've also got options in here to tell us if the traffic logs didn't merge properly, or, for example, if there are any hours that do not contain any traffic. A little bit further down, we've got a silence detection unit here, so we can monitor for silence, and if there is silence, we can trigger something via file copy. You can trigger any file copy job to be run on the event of a silence detection, and also trigger it when silence or when audio resumes. So that's kind of cool. Audio device we're setting here is a remote monitor. So remember we talked about the Studio Monitor, the little application that runs on the Studio. It's pumping and sending us the audio levels, so we can actually monitor the audio levels from another system somewhere else on the network. Really, really quite useful. In the options tab, what have we got in here? Well, we can also choose to enable the weather. The weather you see on the top of PlayoutONE and is also used with the time and temperature announcements. You can enable your Twitter and Facebook credentials in here. This is super cool. So you can put Twitter and Facebook notifications into the log. So just as PlayoutONE would play a piece of audio, it can also tweet, or it can also Facebook as well. Very, very cool. Reconciliation. So if you need to set up a reconciliation log to one of many vendors, you can set that up here as well. Isolation mode. Now this is cool. Isolation mode. By default, PlayoutONE runs typically, if you're running in a server client model, where the audio lives on the server and the PlayoutONE system runs in the studio. Well, what happens if the server goes down? It's kind of a problem because you're going to lose your audio and you're going to lose your radio station. Not with isolation mode. Isolation mode allows a studio machine to run from itself for up to 12 hours, which is cool. Let's pretend in the middle of the night, I don't know, a network switch goes down in the office, breaking communication between us and the server. When I say us, I'm talking about the studio machine now. Now, without isolation mode, that's it, game over. We have to wait for someone to come in and restart everything. Not with isolation mode. PlayoutONE will detect in the studio that, hey, the server's not there, and it will automatically fail over and run from itself for up to 12 hours, which is kind of cool. Keeps you on the air. Now, lots of people ask about metadata. How do we get metadata to the RDS, to SecureNet, to FTP, to the likes of Air, the website guys? This is how you do it. All you have to do is click on one of the outputs. I don't know, let's choose Shoutcast, for example. Yes, we would like to add an output for Shoutcast, and then you can put in all your details for Shoutcast. You've also got further options in here so that we can change the casing, we can delay sending of the metadata, we can only use the title of the artist if we want to replace text between certain characters, all that kind of cool stuff. You can add as many metadata outputs as you wish per station. So if you've got 3 Shoutcasts, just add them 3 times. As simple as that. Finally, we've got a metadata schedule in here. So what does this do? Well, this is kind of really cool. Let's pretend we want to take the metadata from another station in our cluster because we're program sharing. Well, we can set that up using the metadata schedule here. We can say between 10 and 2 on a Monday through Friday, go take the metadata from station B, for example. You can also say, instead of actually getting the metadata from PlayoutONE, just say this instead. So if you take American Top 40 on a Saturday morning, you can say between 6 and 10 a.m., just display American Top 40. And all other bits and pieces will be ignored. So kind of useful. So that's the station settings. I'm going to come out of here. Some other things we've got, just to let you know of, maintenance mode. Yes, maintenance mode. What this does is useful for engineers if you're doing those pesky Windows updates or you're doing something on the server. Enabling maintenance mode stops the alerts from coming through. So if we close down, for example, let's say a file copy here. Goodbye, file copy. It's gone. It's gone red. However, it's not going to email out to the PD or to the people who need to know because maintenance mode is in place. Now, if I disable maintenance mode, you can see, oh, one problem now. We've got one problem. That's telling us that file copy is not running. How do we know file copy is not running? Well, it's red. It's telling us right there. It's red. What we can also do is if we minimize monitor just for a second, you can see on the top screen here of the log, monitor warning, one problem. So you're getting that alert in the studio as well. It's not just down to the engineer to notice. Hopefully someone in the studio is going to notice. This also shows, there we go. This also shows in WebVT as well. There's a little monitor section in WebVT, which is kind of cool. So you can see the status of what's going on. Now let's just restart file copy just to clear that log, just to clear that error. There we go. File copy is now started back up. And when monitor does its next check, there we go. It's gone green and everything is all okay again. So that's PlayoutONE Monitor. If you would like to find out more, then of course you can do. Just visit our help pages at help.playoutone.com. Or if there's something specific, you can always contact our support team, support@playoutone.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.